gifted clairvoyant and a psychic. I've always had this gift from childhood. And over the last 25 years, I've been guiding people. But, with each year, with each experience, you go deeper into your work. And my work from readings has gone deeper into patterns, emotional conditionings, and also ancestral imprints that show up in how we, carry ourselves into the relationships, especially as parents. So that's where mindful parenting steps up for me in my line of work, because when I look at clients and we are reading, and then every time a client comes up and says, but why this all the time? Why? Where is this coming from? And then we tell the guys, all right, you know what? I don't want to know what's happening next. Tell me, why am I here every single time? With the same conflict with my child or my parent, why? And then that's how you go into emotional conditioning, your ancestral imprints, and how you exist and carry yourself as a child of your elderly parents, and so as an adult child, to a parent, to a child. So it's been a beautiful journey that I've experienced over years. And I believe that to be an effective individual, you anyways have to be mindful.
I will
So,
absolutely agree, but continue. Why do you have to be mindful?
because you don't want to, so what is being mindful? To be aware of your state, your emotional state, your patterns, so that you do not react. But by being aware of them, you respond. And that is a game changer. You stuck in a traffic, either you're screaming, shouting, reacting, or you're sitting down and like, I'm going to listen to my music. I'm going to listen to my podcast. This is how it is. Let me not make it miserable. Oh, you look out of the window. Hello there. Smile. Oh, it's a domino effect. So, to cooking, have you looked all these chefs that are so much into their cooking? It's all mindful. To prayers, to a child who's so engrossed in what they're building, mindful. To kind of line of ants walking, picking up food, gathering for the winters, mindful. To birds, mindful. It's time to sleep. It's getting dark. Before even it gets dark, they know it. They're mindful. So they are so much in tune with themselves and the source and the universe. So it's so flawless, right? It's like and with us, with the mind, that is, we're meant to be gifted, but we're just kind of working it against the whole universal flow because we're not mindful.
Let me ask you then, just to establish mindful parenting, what is
Mhm.
mindful parenting? What are some of the behaviors of mindful parenting?
Responding than reacting. That's it. Responding than reacting. Also, when you're responding and not reacting, you also understand that you're human. So even if you were carried by the life, it was hectic, you did scream at the child, you go back and say, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to do it. I just got carried away. So you pause. So most importantly, you pause before reaction. Take a breath. This is not about me. It's not a personal attack. So that brings you to identifying your own triggers. Why does this specific behavior of my child trigger me so much? Is it about my child or is it about my past? What is it triggering in me? It's reminding me or my body or my system of something that happened in the past that threatened me, because this is a child. I shouldn't be threatened by the child. Two, separating the child from the behavior. The child is not the problem. The problem is the behavior that's coming from him. And then the repair. Oh, I'm human. I'm not a perfect parent. I am so sorry. I've got an 18-year-old too. So there's so many times I lose it and I say, I'm so sorry. I lost it. I didn't mean to hurt you, but I was so tired and I will do better. And then the master key, do your inner work. Because the more you work on yourself, the more you conscious you are of your patterns, your conditioning, and the less you pass on unconsciously. Does that make sense?
It does, and the way you describe that reminded me of my childhood. And growing up, I always wanted a family. So when I reached the age of, I think I was 18, 17, I was dating a young lady and I met her family. She met my family. And we're like, okay, after we finish school, university, we're going to get married. I want to get married because I didn't have the family that I wanted. So I
Mhm.
want to become the parent that I didn't have growing up. So as we worked towards that and we're finishing up school, I began to see, oh, there's behaviors from her side that reminds me of the family that I'm trying to escape and the family I didn't want to be a part of anymore. So it didn't necessarily work out, but I learned two things that day. One, sometimes the best reason for wanting something is not to get it just to replace something that you didn't have. It has to be born from love. The second thing is I had to define why I wanted this family and why past behaviors were triggering me. When you said the inner work, do you see some people struggle with separating the behavior from their childhood and making sure it doesn't show up in their adult life when they become parents?
So honestly, I would say 95% of us aren't even aware. Life these days is so hectic and chaotic that I think we've forgotten we feel what is life all about? Earning, having this, having that, having a family, because everybody has it. Then you have children, you send them to university and they are set, and then you grow old and you have enough money for retirement. That's
The
life.
American dream, right? 2.5 kids, white picket fence, dog named Sparky.
Yeah, probably. And if I was to talk about the Arab and the Middle East dream, it would be 5 kids, 6 kids, two, the Asian to, yeah, but, and then how, we are so caught up in life that how many of us actually sit with ourselves? So there's no minute. The moment you're free, either you're on the phone or you're calling up somebody or you're planning how can I sit free? I have to do something. So most of the people do not even know that there is something called mindful parenting. That it, it's just happening. And so that we don't have to do anything about it. They just grow up on their own until, of course, people who walk the path that I walk and who are sent my way, like I don't advertise my work. So my request to the universe is lead people to me the way, the ones that will benefit from me, right? So it's more about attracting the right kind of people because then they benefit. And when, people benefit and learn from you, you learn as well. So it's a beautiful symbiotic relationship. Having said that, so when people come to me, they're in various stages of their journey. So some of them are like, I'm struggling. I want to have a child, but look at my relationship with my mom. It's collapsing. I hit her. Two, she reminds me of this. I don't want to have a child. Two, I had a great career and it's all collapsed. I can't even settle in a stable relationship. And then when you look back and you start talking about to a 28-year-old about his family, the parents have had a tumultuous relationship, marriage, and here is this 28-year-old struggling, not knowing why he cannot have stable relationship. Two addictions, two parents who are reaching their, midlife crisis, and they're like everything is collapsing, but they are not able to identify. And then I pick them up. So my whole idea is everything around you, including how you parent to how you look after your parents or deal with your parents to your friendships, everything is an extension of you. So anybody who comes to me, I just, my thing is, can we pause and sit with ourselves and work with ourselves and look within? Because the moment you're mindful, the moment I put them on that practice, oh, you know what? I have to tell you. I had this conversation with my daughter. Every time we have a fight, but today I didn't have a fight. I realized I was speaking my own mom's words. But I never wanted to be like my mom, right? So it's so when they come to me, we're not talking about mindful parenting. We're not even talking about the word mindful. But that's the moment they come to me and sit down, I'm like, all right, how can I help you? And they're like, uh, could you please tell us? Could you tell me what's happening in my life? And I'm like, all right, let's start. To denial, to a non-acceptance, to some of them just agreeing and acknowledging because they were at that point where they just wanted to know how can they flip it. But having said this, knowledge is not enough, because being mindful is one thing, but being a mindful parent is a journey of a lifetime, probably lifetimes, because we're talking about patterns not from this lifetime, ancestral imprints, to it's so much inner work. It's so much inner work. And then you have this tiny little human who's designed to press your buttons exactly where you will get triggered. And that's the beauty of it. I always tell the parents, if you're getting triggered by your child's behavior, stand in front of the mirror. Ask yourself, what's happening in my life right now? Because the child is just mirroring you. He's absorbing your energy. So that is where the energy aspect of my work comes in really handy and effective. The child is not reacting to your behavior. The child is reacting to your energy.
Is that something that we miss?
Absolutely, because we don't understand energy, right? They are picking up on our tension, anxiety. You may not even say anything. Mommy, are you okay? And they don't respond to what we say. They're responding to what we are carrying. Children are very sensitive to energy. You see, babies, they're very sure about who they want to go to because they're so pure, right? So they respond to your energy. Very simple.
So let me ask you then, if you have someone, let's say you have a couple. They're in their early 20s. They've had the conversation, which I agree everyone should, that they want to have children. How does that point, from point A, we've had the conversation, to point B, they have given birth. How does that conversation go from understanding how your parenting style is going to influence that child?
Terrain, it's really hard to really define it this way, because here we are, two individuals grown up in completely different, families, and highly likely opposite as well, because that's how we attract. The lack attracts what's lacking in your life, you would attract a similar lack, right? Where you are in your energy vibration at that time, that's the kind of man you're going to attract. So that's one point. But when you have children, I personally believe that to raise a child, both parents will respond from their own wounds and traumas and their upbringing. Now, what is most important is to not come from, again, being aware of not wanting to come from where you were brought up and what you think is right, as to focusing on where is the child coming from. Like when a baby is crying, you don't say, oh, I think he wants me. You come from baby's crying, he might have needs. Either he's wet, either he's dirty, or he needs milk. It's not what about you. It's not about what you think, how you were raised. So, but we forget that as the child gets vocal, more independent, and starts throwing triggers at you, we are so busy working, then obviously understanding each other as parents, because most of the people get married and have children very quickly. It's not like they're having children after 15, 20 years of knowing each other, right? So just so when a child throws something at you, you need to pause and not react. You need to respond. But 99% of the times we are reacting from not even something that the child would need, like to something very different. And then you're like, but why did I get so bad? He just needed a pizza, for example. But because probably in my childhood, pizza was not, you know what, you take things for granted, blah, 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 the whole conditioning. So reacting versus responding, because you cannot go into thinking that I'll first do the inner work, and so you do your inner work, your partner does your inner work, then you do the work together, and then you have children. Impossible. Life happens, children happen, you parent, but this goes on simultaneously. That's how it's meant to be.
So then, if that's the case, that there's either you're reacting or you're responding, how do we then identify which one is which and when it's appropriate?
Oh, wow. So responding is being aware of where you are in the moment in the child's needs, and just providing for the child to what he needs, not from your conditioning, not from your emotional patterns. To reacting is more about, but I told you, this is what is going to happen. You always do this. And here, you know what? You always drop it. You're so clumsy. Oh my gosh. So we've labeled the child here. So, I mean, of course, you can't really, this is not very black and white, but it's all about, so many times, uh, I am a more aware parent in my household, and I've got an 18-year-old and I've got a 13-year-old. So I have raised them in a way where they are, they speak what they feel. So we were, in a gathering somewhere, and general thing, and my husband says, oh, but my husband said something which was more of a labeling, and my son says, but that's not true. And so all my husband's friends were sitting, and my husband goes like, oh yeah, I apologize, I didn't mean to label you, I just meant to say you're generally shy. So, but this has been a long journey. Otherwise, as a parent, you would just react and say, you know what, can you just keep quiet? You don't have to speak in front of the adults, or defend yourself, or just shut the kid up, or later on get mad at the kid. So that's that's how you react versus respond. The child also did the same. He did not react, he responded. I'm not shy, you labeling me, but I don't want to talk because they're all adults, so I choose to be quiet here. Whatever. Well done. But it's a long journey. It's a long journey, because it's not something you choose. The conditioning is so hard, these patterns in us, that it's very hard to be mindful. It's really hard. I have to say that. It takes a lot of practice, because we were parented a certain way. We have these patterns: fear control, validation seeking, people pleasing. And then under stress, we repeat these patterns. And if you're not careful, the child will absorb them. So if it's unconscious, I mean, we are unaware of them, it'll become a cycle, and same dysfunctional transgenerational patterns will continue. If it's conscious, it becomes a choice. And I always say, to me, my biggest role as a parent and as a mom is to be a cycle breaker by not passing on the dysfunctional patterns I have inherited. There is no other word I can add to it.
You mentioned, Shilpi, patterns. That remind me of someone that I used to work with. This is when we first started working from home right after the pandemic and COVID. And she is married and she had children. And now, instead of her children being at daycare, her children was in the house because she's working from home. Her husband worked outside of the home. So, like a lot of parents, especially those who have children, let's say under 5, that's
Yeah.
probably the most stressful time for a lot of parents, right? It's just high stress, high demand. So for her, she realized that she loves her children, but she doesn't necessarily like them. Unfortunately, that not liking them was taking away from the love that she had for them. And she made a decision, and the decision was, I can't do this anymore. I need to pivot and do something else. So not only did she quit her job, she actually left the marriage. Parenthood was just too much for her. And I share that because years later, when I spoke to her, she admitted that she saw that in her family. So you spoke about ancestral trauma, you spoke about generational trauma, you spoke about patterns. Here she was doing to her family what was done to her. The oppressed becomes the oppressor. When it comes to parents who are trying to break patterns like that or patterns similar, where they realize years later, oh my goodness, I am my mother. I am my father. I'm hurting them like like I was hurt. How can
Exactly.
we, in general, advise them going forward that there's still a chance to correct it even though time has passed?
Oh, well, I mean, if the children have grown up, then it's absolutely, we're not dealing with children anymore. We're dealing with adults. And those adults will be operating out of their own trauma if they haven't worked out and done the inner work. So then you really can't do anything, right? Because they may not be open to listening to you. And she made her choice. She left the kids, right? Now that pattern has repeated. Now the whole thing has passed on to her children. Let's see, what are you going to do? Are you going to repeat the same pattern or are you going to break it?
That's a big
Now,
question. That's a big
it's a big
question
question.
to ask.
And do we think about it? We don't. It's only, you know, now again, Taren, I do not have any formal coaching on this, but for me, when life was getting really hard, I am an Indian. So Indian, it's a very patriarchal society. I was raised in a wonderful family. My father ensured that we get very good education. My grandmother was a force to reckon with. So amazing woman, very independent. It's only when I got married is when patriarchy hit me. I was like, oh, whoa, right? I can't speak my mind anymore. I'm a girl. And then when I had my daughter, I realized that, oh, it's a girl. And then I went back to my dad and I said, you had two daughters. They're like, yeah, people never congratulated us, but I was very happy. I was like, so the universe was at play. From a family where women were valued, I got married into where, you know, and my husband was neutral. So obviously, initially, he would side more towards the parents because that's where your conditioning is. And then came a point where I had to raise my children. Now, very beautifully, my father was quite mindful, I would say, in terms of He did undergo a bit of behavioral courses later on when I was 18, and I saw a huge shift in him. And there was a lot about spoken about things, though the damage was done. I also come from a very, very, because all of us want to be great parents, but we are all products of our circumstances, our childhood. So, not every, sometimes the circumstances just don't allow you to be mindful as a parent. And also, where is the awareness? I mean, we are in a different generation altogether. So, having said that, it took me a while to understand what I want to do and what I don't want to. And when I realized it, my first thing was, hello, access the guides, access my clairvoyance and the guidance and say, I ain't going down this path. You need to help me. I So the only thing was I wouldn't give up. I would rebel to all the patriarchal rules. And I was like, no, I'm not lying. I'm not sugarcoating. Why? If it's white, it is white, right? Because two, so what if it's a girl? Two, you know. And then as my daughter started growing up, I realized I had so much anger in me that she would get scared. And so that's why they say children are your biggest teachers. So I remember when she was 2, I gave her a placard and said, if I get angry, you show this to me. Mommy, you are scaring me. She just had to use it once. All my childhood, I was told I have a bad temper because my boundaries were firm. This is what I realize now. I was made to believe there's something wrong in me because they couldn't break me. So they have to find there's something wrong in me, right? The reason I was angry was because my boundaries were very strong, and all that people want to do is go over your boundaries. I'm like, hey, if you are as adults are playing, you don't ask us kids to go and make tea for you. I don't want to do it either if you don't feel like doing it. And why am I labeled as lazy or rebellious for saying no when that's exactly what you're doing? You're enjoying a game and you're asking us kids to make tea for you. Where am I wrong?
Would that mean then sometimes some parents are projecting their insecurities onto their children?
So many times. What else are we doing? Again, mindful parenting. It's so hard, right? It's we don't even realize it because it's so it takes a lot of practice. And again, you can't focus it on when it's happening with the child. So the more inner work you've done, you automatically become mindful. Am I operating out of myself or the patterns? Am I reacting or am I responding? Then it becomes it's a gate. So then that's how you operate with everybody else. But with kids, you're super careful because they don't know any better. And
That's
the beauty,
tough.
it's
Yeah, I was gonna say, Shelby, that's tough because what you're describing is then that is a tremendous amount of work for someone to do, considering that there's so many distractions in the world today. So I can say the example you gave me for me was in my 20s. I
Mhm.
did no work. The funny thing is, when that relationship ended, I spent the next 10 years doing the work. Imagine if I had children at that time when I'm doing the work, it would have been a disaster for everyone involved. It
Absolutely.
wasn't until from I was approaching 20 to when I was approaching 30 where I'm like, no more people pleasing, no more holding on to past wounds, no more limiting beliefs, no more self doubt. There was none of that. Once at my 30s, that's when I could have say that if I was ever going to have children, it would have been at this point because I was more successful in my personal life, more successful in my
Mm.
romantic life, and I was more successful in my professional life. But if I had children back then, which is around the age many of us do have children, it would have been a catastrophe. And I think Part of the reason why was one, I was thinking the family's going to help me escape something, which it never does. And
Oh,
two, I was thinking I didn't have X growing up, so let me go create it and have it with Y. But
so
they
you're
didn't mesh.
fulfilling, exactly, you're fulfilling your lack by having something that's not going to fulfill your lack. That's going to highlight that lack even more and push your buttons exactly because the child will need love from you, not fulfill your lack. That's another thing where if you, so, but that's with every relationship as well. That's why I say inner work is so important that when you step out as a, think about it. I always tell everybody when you give, it should be not out of a limited supply of. So if we are a bucket, now if I keep giving out of a limited supply, I'm going to be, it's going to be depleted, right? Nobody can be fulfilling others from a limited supply while they are depleted. So it has to be the other way around. It has, your bucket has to be so full and overflowing that when it overflows, everybody around it benefits. But it doesn't matter, first of all, who is benefiting, because then your job is to just maintain an unlimited supply into your bucket. And that is the connection with, depending on your cultural beliefs, your religious beliefs. I am spiritual. I take things from every religion, what pleases me. But to me, my relationship is to my higher self, my soul, and the universe, and the elements of nature. And that's enough. The sun has unlimited supply. It doesn't think, oh, I'm going to give it to you. So I give my light to you. So you give it back. You give me something back. It's so much that everybody is benefiting and it's not bothered because he has enough. Same with the moon, same with the breeze. So, can I be with the inner work? Can I be so, of course, with my legs? The sun has its own flaws. The moon is beautiful, but it has its own craters. Everything. But we all have it. But can I be so fulfilled in myself that I don't approach, I do not step out lacking something that somebody has to give, because each one of has us, if we kind of come into a relationship or a equation out of a lack, it just doesn't work out that way, right?
When you say lack, are you saying like a lack of self-worth, lack of self-value? What do you mean
Could
by
be
lack?
anything, could be anything. Lack of self-love, lack of money, lack of just being acknowledged, to lack of, so in relationships, for example, you know what, my husband never gives me gifts on my birthdays, standard, okay, but he never gives me gifts, and then all these years of complaining, he brought me this gift. I mean, he should know better that this is not what I needed. So we need to understand the lack is not, the problem is not with the husband. Only you know at what time what you want. But you want somebody else to fulfill that, please you, and make you feel loved your way. Now any other individual can love you the way they have seen love. They've experienced love, not how you want it. That's, do we realize it? It's so simple. I will extend myself in the way I know. I, I only know love how I've been shown and how I've grown up, until I do some self work and learn. At the same time, my definition of love to the other person's definition of love is very different. Now, that if you're coming out of an expectation, that's a lack.
So,
Else, anything
so
that you do out of love with the right intention should be received with, oh, thank you, I love the intention.
Let me see if I understand that then. So if it's I'm expecting the gifts, I'm expecting you to love me in this specific way. And if I don't get it, it's because I'm lacking instead of just accepting the way that they're loving me in the way that they're showing the love.
Exactly, because what you're lacking is an understanding that the other person can only love the way they know love is, not how you want it. Isn't that a limiting belief and a lack of you wanting to be loved exactly the way you want to be loved? Then, if that is the thing, only you know how you want to be loved. Give it to yourself. Buy that gift to yourself. Why expect the other person? They are doing what they can. Can you see in the other ways they love you?
I
That's the
see what you
thing.
mean. Right? Yeah, you're saying that if they love you, if they're loving you in 10 ways, but those 10 ways are not that one way you want to be loved, it's not a lack because you have an abundance of love.
But the fact that you go out, you complain, and you only see what they are not able to do because that's how you want it is a lack. And when you go out with that lack, the relationship will never be fulfilling.
How does that
Because
then affect the children and the families?
now depends on how the husband reacts. Maybe he will go into I can never be enough, to you know what, a fight, or react and say, you know what, whatever I do is not enough, to he will stop doing. That's one thing. Then children grow up seeing, oh my God. So some children, now depending on the same family, same circumstances, what child will say, you know what, I don't want to get married. It's so much of hassle. Second will say, I'm never going to have children. You know what? It's so much trouble because you get to see all these parents fighting, blah, blah, blah. Third will go and just replicate exactly the same pattern as the parent. Complain, 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 complain. And maybe there'll be one generational cycle breaker there who'll be like, oh man, I'm happy the way I am. Thank you for doing what you could do for me. And so you got me this, I love it. Now, if I need the dress, I'm going to go and buy it for myself. That's the generational breaker you see here, who's on her way to become a mindful parent. I do tell my 18-year-old, you know what? She comes and says, Mommy, parenting is so hard. It's so hard as I see you do it. And because it's not almost like being aware, now I also have to be aware of my husband not projecting his fears and his parenting, dysfunctional parenting, because he's not at the same milestone. There's nothing great about me, but this is my work. I work with so many people. I chose it. So I see where he's coming from, but I also see that my children have been taken beyond that level already. So there will be an answer back saying, I don't think that's how it is, Daddy. You're labeling me. So then I have to be alert and step in and see what's happening. And then, kind of go back and speak to him and say, you know what, this is how children are, this is how they have been raised. I don't think sometimes there's responding, sometimes there is reacting. Then to my children and say, Daddy doesn't get how you've been raised with me. That doesn't mean he doesn't love you. He's getting there. But you be you. I am proud of you for standing up for yourself.
You have me thinking now. If I look at my childhood experience, what I wanted from it could have been what my parents were lacking from when they were children and they just passed it down. And now I have the opportunity to break that. So either I break it or I just don't have children, which would prevent it from happening again. But the expectation should always be that someone in that line of family has to break that trauma. Would that be accurate to say?
Well, I wouldn't say someone has to break, but yes, it has to break somewhere. Now, if you don't do it, maybe your siblings, maybe their children, and you don't have to have children to be able to do it. There are so many other ways you can do it. It's just not like you have to get into parenting to do it. How you come out in a relationship, how you come out as an uncle, how you present yourself as a partner, as a professional, as a mentor, also, or to even lead a parent to understand their patterns. You've done your work. So you don't have to necessarily be a parent. Does that make sense, though?
So let me ask you then, when it comes to parenting, and you have a couple who's in their mid to late 20s, and they've identified their wounds, their trauma.
Mhm.
They're like, Terrain, Shelby, I don't know if I can resolve them. I don't know if I can fix it. I work 10 hours. I still want this type of lifestyle. I want kids, but the work that you're asking me to do for myself and of myself, for the family, is a leap that is too far. How can we provide them with optimism that the journey is a difficult one, but it's not impossible?
I wouldn't even say it's you have to say it's a difficult one. Is it more difficult than actually maintaining a job for 30 years of your life? Is it more difficult than it becomes a part of you like brushing your teeth? I- And right? So I don't think it's difficult, but it's difficult if you take it as a chore. It, it is as much a part of you as you take a deep, as you breathe every single minute. Because it's all about being an effective human being, mindful person. So if you're mindful, you as a person, it'll reflect in every single relationship of yours. And then you are at least trying. Then with the children, if you present yourself mindfully, it's as you is it it's learning as you come and go. Some days you will fail, some days you won't. Like when I was raising my children, there was nothing called mindful parenting. There was hardly any internet. And it would be like every day I would just sit down, I was like, all right, so what am I going to do? And as my daughter, I remember she was, 8 and 9, and I could see that, some days I would see she comes back home and she's very upset. And she doesn't want to talk to mommy because mommy will react or mommy will preach. Oh, you shouldn't have done this. So then I said, of course, I have to say, I've been led by the guides. I'm intuitive. So I remember one day I sat down and I said, you know what? Uh, Mummy has 2 ears. So one is a parent's ear and one is a friend's ear. So the right one is parents, left one. So today, who would you like to talk to? The friend will just listen. And the parent would tell you what needs to be done. So that became a habit. So she would come and say, I want to speak to the friend here. Okay. Now, the beauty of this is you're still an adult and the child needs direction. But now, if it was the friend's ear that was spoken to, I was like, oh, yeah, this sounds hard. It must be very hard. I remember when I was a child, something like this happened, and somebody told me you do this, and I did it and it worked. That's it. You've done your job. Parenting is still done.
Is that
And
balance difficult for parents?
it is, it is, I would say it is difficult if you're a working mom. Definitely. I took a step back, deciding that this is my job is to break the patterns. That's my job. Do I regret it? No. Did it leave me behind with the world? In terms of the world, yes. You've studied so much. You're still sitting at home raising children. Look at my daughter in law. She's working. The servants can manage children. Okay. Did it leave me alone? Yes, I had to disconnect from the whole family because I knew what I'm doing. Did I need a supporter? Yes. My dad and a mentor who kept saying, they don't see what you're doing. Do it anyway. Did the universe test me? Yes. It kept sending me beautiful job offers which were too enticing to decline. But did I decline them? I did. Do I regret it? No, I don't. Because the best gift I could have given to myself is having stood alone, fought with the world, and not passed on those patterns. That's such a fulfilling. I mean, I'm sure I have. Nobody's a perfect parent. So I told my 18-year-old, you're saying I'm a wonderful mom. I'm very grateful to you for that. But you're all of 18. Remember, 10 years down the line, when midlife crisis hits, you may think differently. And if you think differently that time, remember, I'm telling you now, you'll have two options then. Speak to me. Tell me. If I get it, great. If I don't get it, feel free to disconnect from me until you have worked on yourself and healed, knowing I tried my best. I give you the permission now to leave and disconnect if I don't get your point of view then. And I'm not willing to take feedback on my parenting 20 years, 10 years down the line. Do what's important for you, what keeps you fulfilled and nourished.
When it comes to breaking away from things that are triggering you or things that are a source of your trauma, what role do you think guilt and shame plays when that trigger or that trauma is within the family?
It's hard. It's really hard. And having said that, at the end, again, terrain, what is it that you value the most? So, when you walk this path, self love and self preservation will hold so much importance that that guilt and shame eventually will wear off because you'll be like, my purpose is sacred. I need to preserve myself right now so that I don't do the same damage. Of course, it's hard. It's very hard. And then, but I always say, detach, take time off, but don't disconnect completely. Because then you're running away. You're leaving the healing. The healing should be so beautiful. It should be so powerful that you've healed from the hurt and forgiven and also realized that, like, you are a product of your childhood, they were a product of their childhood, like you're trying to be a better parent and trying your best, they tried their best too. But guess what? This is life. Something goes great, something doesn't. So what goes great, you cherish it, you love it, you be grateful for it. What it doesn't, you work on it and you ensure it doesn't get passed on, and that's evolution.
Can our children save us from ourselves?
No, why should they save us? We save ourselves and we teach them how to save themselves. Nobody's responsible for anybody. Why should my child save myself? I brought her into the world. If anything, I should be saving her. But I'm not going to save her. I'm going to give her the tools, show her, lead with an example until they're capable of saving themselves. And
I
that's
ask
it.
because I know sometimes they could be a person who is maybe not living the best life. And they know, and now parenthood is at their front door and they're about to become a parent. And they will say to themselves sometimes, or some people say to themselves, I need to be better not only for me, but for my child as well, because I don't want that child to grow up with the experiences that I did that made me this person before I realized I was going to be a father or a mother. So in their eyes, they may view it as that child has saved me. But then I guess another perspective is I'm saving myself for my child.
I don't, oh, we love projecting. We love finding reasons to become better. And if it doesn't, then we blame others. But, oh, if I was improving myself for this child, but this child, he was so stubborn, I could never improve. You're having that child for yourself, not for the child. You want to be a parent for yourself. You want to become a better human being? Again, you do it for yourself. Because if you're doing out of expectation of doing, see, again, if you're doing anything to please someone, for someone, then there is an expectation. To raise you, I had to become a better parent. And this is how you speak to me? I did so much. It doesn't work like that. So let's begin with the right equation. I want to be a mindful, self-loving, self-fulfilling human being for myself. Period. And then that's how I extend as a wife, as a mom, as a daughter. Of course, if there are wounds, I will take a step back, and I have in my journey. Because now, when you walk this path and you're more mindful, you obviously start seeing more flaws in others, which, of course, your parents as well. And then you're like, oh my God. And then you get irritated or you don't like it and you're like, it's dragging me down. And then this path becomes so sacred to you. You become so sacred to yourself that anything that drags you down, you just want to detach because, oh my God, there's so much hard work that's gone into it. I ain't risking it for anyone, including my own children. They're my responsibility. Once they grow up, they fend for themselves. If you become a deterrent to my self love, let's detach. You go your way, I go my way until we understand where I'm coming from and where you're coming from.
Let me ask you, Shilpi, one final question before I let you go. I want to give you three wishes because this is such a fantastic conversation we're having. So I just want to hone on this one point that you made. What are three things you wish people knew about handling and understanding those big emotions when it comes to parenting, and why?
Oh, very important. Understanding and knowing where are you coming from. So let me just put it the other way around and say, how can we, what is it, what are those three practices probably we can do to be, incorporating this if mindful parenting? Does that make sense? Okay. So now, very simple. Breathe, right? We breathe every day. But every time you're facing your child and you see heat building up, there's a reaction. Breathe. So the child is breathe. Pause. Even if you were to pause for 5 seconds, you will not react. You will respond. It's that simple. And yes, the first time you may not get it. The second time you may get it only later. Third time you will stop in the middle of screaming back, reacting. And the fourth time you will catch yourself just before reacting. That is why we say breathing should be an everyday practice because it helps you pause and respond, then react.